Welcome, everyone, to Together We Serve podcast. I have a special guest today, and what's exciting about this guest, me being part of the health club industry and fitness industry from 78 to 2000, nutrition was a part of it, was part of my life, my family's life, that we ran the health club. So I'm excited to have him on because he's doing some really cool things for people outside the medical industry, like hair analysis that I'm actually doing right now, waiting for my results. And I'm excited to see what they find and what nutrition I can use for myself. So I'm a client, and it's always cool to be a client because I can give you feedback and I'll give you a follow-up down the road. But I'm excited to have Barton Scott on the show today. Barton, welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. We had a little technical snafu, but you know the nice thing about technical snafus? You can fix them. Yeah. And we did.
Yeah.
So I want to know about Barton Scott. What's he all about?
I really got into this because I was very passionate about health and my whole life, and my mom got very sick. And, she, to really say it like it is, like she passed and it could have been prevented. I felt like that was a really obvious thing, a really obvious truth. So, yeah, I mean, that's where we are. I started a company that is one of the most advanced supplement companies in the world now. And, I did that because the supplements we were taking weren't absorbing. And I had good proof of that. And I had good proof of that because we did something that I really believe in now, which is, this is about 12 years ago. And I was helping her in my early 20s. It was a very formative time. I was finishing chemical engineering. And it was not easy. And I was having my own issues. I had Hashimoto's. I had all sorts of thyroid conditions, heavy metal toxicity, brain fog, trouble focusing. I would reread things. And if you've ever looked at chemical engineering texts or something, I mean, there's no room for rereading. There's no time for that. There's no, the workloads are from one class are more than the average business school. Just one class is just so much more and so much harder. The prerequisites it's a lot to keep in your head, and to have brain fog on top of that, it's just you almost can't do it no matter how smart you are. So it was really tough. And I was always looking for a way for my entire life to have the most energy possible, because, imagine as you're listening to this, if you're not driving, close your eyes and think back to a day where you had the perfect amount of energy. You woke up and you slept so well. Maybe you're on vacation, or maybe you just couldn't wait to get to work, and you realized, wow, I could do just about anything today. And I don't need coffee. It feels like a habit. I could do it, but I definitely don't need it. I mean, that is how my morning felt this morning. That is how most of my days feel. And because of that, because of the ability to actually absorb all the nutrition that I'm taking in, it makes a radical difference in my energy levels, as you might expect. So I've been on a passion. Who am I? I'm very passionate. I'm a person that's very passionate in giving that to the world. And then I'm really passionate about solving big problems. So root cause problems worldwide. So there's 700 million people that don't have clean water. So we donate to a company that drills water wells and helps the community sustain itself. So yeah, those are a couple ideas at least. And then I was an athlete, and that's part of what led me to this, because I had a lot of deficiencies that led to some of that brain fog.
Well, it's interesting you were saying you could have prevented your mom's death. That's profound.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing maybe in her legacy or in her stories, maybe helping others not go through the same fate, right?
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah. That's a hell of a legacy. I'm just going to leave it at that. That's pretty powerful. So when you say athletes, not everybody's an athlete. There's the weekend warriors and stuff. This can help them as well, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you're hydrating and you're just using water, or you're like, some triathletes now still use sugar, like goju, like like 1995 sugar stuff, and it's just because the top athletes use that, and that's what everyone sort of models because they're getting the record time, so it must be working. But there's an interesting question I like to ask: is what you're doing working, or are you succeeding in spite of it? And it's really hard to know that, unless you're using data and unless you're being really objective, which some people have that gift to be very objective, and other people just have other gifts, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So chemical engineering, no, thank you. I'm with you. Yeah, God bless you for doing it. I know I couldn't do it. I'm not smart enough, and that's okay. But what did you learn going through that to get you to start Upgraded Formulas?
Oh, it gave me the basis to understand that I could build an industrial system that could use nanotechnology equipment to take the minerals that we were absorbing, which, for people hearing this, like, think about this, right? As you're hearing this, remember just briefly the periodic table, and that builds everything. The periodic table builds everything on the planet, including what you're hearing this on, and your entire body, your hormones. It builds the food, even the fats, the macros, the protein, the carbs, all of that. All the food you ever take in is only a collection of elements, which is really interesting to think about when you really stop and think about that, right? It's fascinating. Like, it's just that. So why wouldn't it be like, if aliens came down, I think one of the first, and this didn't exist, they'd go, "What is your planet made of?" I've actually never said this before, but think about it. What is your planet made of? And we would go, "Well, we have this chart. It has everything that we've ever discovered on it." And they're like, "For health, do you test that chart?" And we'd go, "We test parts of it." And they're like, "It's probably important to test all of it and look at the relationships between those parts, right?" And we'd go, "Whoa, that's a great idea. Wow." And then they go, "How have you survived so long without doing that?" And they're like, "Well, we do pretty well." And they're like, "Our average lifespan is, I don't know, maybe 80. And like, "Oh, you guys are supposed to live to 200 or whatever. I don't know, we're actually supposed to live to." And like, I mean, you guys are, we don't want to say you're failing at this, but you're just going about it very, very clumsily. And then they would leave because they were like, "We got to go find smarter people to hang out with. This is not up to our standards." Hopefully they wouldn't. Hopefully they wouldn't. But if you can imagine that, just really strange conversation happening, you realize that there's a lot of truth in it. And that's what we do. It turns out that blood is a terrible place to look for deficiencies. And that becomes obvious when you know only a couple things about blood that they don't teach in medical school, which, as a friend of mine said so heartbreakingly, he was halfway through medical school before he realized that nothing he was ever going to do in prescribing drugs was actually going to get someone well, because drugs don't do that. Drugs don't. So again, let's look at the building blocks of the thing we're considering. Do drugs contain the elements needed to restore the deficiency so that you can be back to your original state before you had the symptom? Because, by the way, that's a learning lesson. I'm saying a lot right there. I'll give you that. But they don't. They definitely don't. And it's just a totally different philosophy. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this is complex, and that's why Upgraded Formulas is great. It can do all this for you and get you the results.
We make it
easy. You have to deal with all
right.
this.
Exactly. My goal is really empathy and understanding that most people, even if they're brilliant, are too busy to do anything, and we're certainly all too busy to be a specialist in everything. So with that in mind, like what do you do? How do you think about this? And I just want to make it easy for people to do one major thing in their health and get some massive improvement, and that is what we do. So yeah.
Yeah, I like
so
that.
we test people's hair, which 40% of your body is tissue. And when you think of that, you're like, oh wait, hair is actually considered tissue. Hair is tissue. Skin is tissue. We wonder, like, why are you attracted to like anyone of the either opposite sex or whatever you're into that has great skin and good hair and it's signs of youth. And why would that be an interesting indicator? It's like, well, like that makes more sense when you think about it to test for than blood, because blood, I don't think I actually mentioned this earlier, blood is you on your best behavior. And it's really obviously that when you realize how the body works at just a fundamental level, which the blood is so important that your organs would shut down if the blood pH wasn't just about perfect. Now, we do things all the time in our crazy lives that change the blood pH. We get upset. We get scared. We drink too much alcohol, or any alcohol, really. It's too much. But we drink coffee, which can have some benefits. But too much, can change the pH. The way the body changes that back to the way it was before is it pulls nutrients from stored areas. This is how people go gray really early in their life. And we can actually help people reverse and put color back in their hair by following our protocol. And the way we do that is because we understand that we're actually testing mineral reserves when we test hair. Now, blood is not a reserve. It's what's being used right now. So it's just it's deep understanding of some things that once you learn them are kind of like, wow, it's so obvious. And when you think from a first principle place of like a math and science, not like very blatantly objective place, you kind of go like, wow, makes a lot of sense. It seems like this is how we should have always done things. But then again, med school isn't, by plenty of people's opinion, it's not meant to teach doctors how to get us well. It's meant to, fund the pharmaceutical industry's machine by having people that actually, you have to have people that are going to prescribe the drugs in the first place. So,
yeah. This is great. We're going to take a quick break here. We're going to show you a little bit more about upgraded formulas. We're going to both go out and get a drink of water. You guys take a little quick break, and we'll be back here in a minute or two. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome to our show. Together we serve.
And we are back. That was a little taste of what Barton Scott does, the breathing. We've talked about that. It's just much more nutrition that's on that site. And that's why I want everybody to take a look. Go to upgradedformulas.com. I'm throwing some resources. There's a lot of stuff there. The other thing I want to mention, which I love you're doing, Barton, is taking coaches and holistic practitioners and certifying them in what you're doing to be able to give the test with them as well. Let's jump into upgraded formulas. What is it about? What can people expect? Let's talk about the testing a little bit more as well.
Sure. Thank you so much for that. The upgraded formulas is really a approach to getting people well that is as simple as possible. And I wouldn't dare say that it takes zero effort, but the fact is that you don't have to leave your house. You get the hair test delivered to you, and ultimately we act as like your health concierge for a fraction of the price that you would pay normally. I mean, I'm friends with one of the probably the top longevity doctor in the world, and even they use our stuff. Even they use hair testing. It's unavoidable. It's a lot like gravity. So we're really practitioners of certainty with the understanding of something that's as important as gravity. Meaning that if you don't understand it, it will kill you. It just won't kill you immediately like gravity. So luckily, it's a little more like we have a little more flexibility. But if you're taking a vitamin D supplement, I'll come back to like the big picture in a second. But if you're taking a vitamin D supplement and you already have high calcium, you're like 80% of people, and you're hurting your ability to absorb other nutrients, because the more calcium you have, calcium gets around the cell, and they actually have a name for that. It's called a calcium shell. And if you're watching this on video, it gets around the cell, and guess what other nutrients have a hard time doing? They have a hard time coming into the cell. And that's really terrible, because your body is going to starve at a cellular level that way. And I hear almost no one ever talk about that. And it's super important. It's the foundation of what we do. Now, the other aspect of what we do is that we use our own proprietary process that, remember I say chemical engineering, and chemical engineers are the one that make this process. And these products allow you to sleep better. We did a clinical trial, have more energy, clinical trial on sleep. And what we found was someone's ability to sleep deeply went up as much as, and deep sleep is where your DNA gets repaired, and certainly where you build energy, you remain youthful, you can even age backwards. Someone meets you today and they're like, wow, you seem younger than like I saw you last time. You're like Benjamin Button, like you're aging backwards somehow. Like I don't understand what's happening. And you're like, oh, thank you, that's flattering. And they're like, really? No, like your skin looks great, your hair looks great. Again, they point to those outward signs, which we think of as vanity, but it's really, again, that's tissue. And that's what we want to measure, is tissue. So hair is tissue. Yeah. And so we're looking at that and we're going, okay, Steve, good news, we have a great plan. Like we know that, however you're doing life right now, we can improve it with a couple simple tweaks. And we're just going to need you to supplement this and eat more foods high in that, and supplement this and eat more foods high in that. And by the way, we're not ever going to try to tell you to follow a certain kind of type of diet. We're just going to say, hey, Steve, you're low in potassium. And you know what? 99% of people, literally 99%, not figuratively, not like I'm exaggerating, 99%, because we can't say 100%, 99% of people are low in potassium on a daily basis. We need like 4 grams of potassium. And almost no one gets that. And then we're sweating it out, and we're doing sauna, and, and that's great. Sauna is great. Our stressful life, these minerals are used up by our adrenal glands. And our adrenal glands are just like the thing that seems to get overused so much. And when we get those strong, I've worked for years to get mine strong again after everything I put them through with wrestling and chemical engineering and football, and like just always go go go. Probably like you and so many other people. I know like you for sure because we've talked before. Like so many people listening to this, I can relate. Even if you're trying to take it easy, but you have several kids at home and you're doing a job and things are going well, they're still just like you could have a great day where literally nothing goes wrong, but the demands on your time and your energy are so heavy. Look, it's not your fault. We're just trying to give you a leg up. We're trying to help you with something that, again, we know is just as important as gravity. It literally is like we are the elements that gravity pulls on. We're measuring those elements, and we're just trying to make that as easy as possible for people. So,
and it's powerful because it's simple. You said that a couple times.
Yeah.
If you made it complex, probably nobody would do it, right?
Right. So we have the easiest to use hair test that is like pretty elegant looking and simple and accurate, and it you can get a consultation, and then having supplements that actually absorb took me years to figure out. And it's like a real step change. It's like going from 10 to 100. It's like going from a car to a jet in terms of a delivery system, or a supersonic jet. It's like you can now get to Japan in 2 hours. It's like, wow, now this is what we're talking about. Like this is exciting, right? So that is, I mean, there's, we should be able to help literally everyone with anything, because all disease is rooted in a couple things. And that is the cell, which is inside your organs, which it goes cell, organ, body, right? So are the cells happy? And for the cells to be happy, that's what you need to prevent all lack of ease, aka dis-ease. All you need is to be able to produce energy and detox a cell. That's literally it. And you need certain nutrients like copper and magnesium. So copper and magnesium and oxygen are essential. It's like money for the cells. Even more fundamental than that, like breath, oxygen. Yeah, I mean, right. Elemental. And then you need to be able to get rid of the toxins that you're breathing in, that you're drinking, that you're eating. Yeah. And then that gives you the energy level to overcome any sort of traumatic stress you might have come into life with, because that can happen in birth or even in utero. There's a lot of research on that. And then genetically, we absolutely pass on trapped emotions. There's a whole huge field of study. Emotion code is a brilliant body of work that's helped me a lot. So we have all these other things that we can be better prepared to solve when our nutrition's right. So that's why I'm almost done with the book called How Nutrition Becomes Personality.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the analogy that comes to my head, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to take a test in school, but I don't get to read the book. So I take the test, but I don't have any information. That's what people are doing when they're trying to do nutrition. Like, here's a program, here's a diet.
Yeah.
But they haven't tested me. They're guessing, like, are you tired? Are you sore here? Doing a little bit, but your test is going to be 100% success, because you're going to know exactly what's wrong with me.
Totally. And absolutely. And look, I'm a fan of doing other things too. Mm-hmm. I just think this is really the thing that everyone has to do to be well consistently. I'm not saying that there's some other diet that you can do or some other approach to diet that you can do that will yield optimal results. I've just yet to see it. And I'm part of a top anti-aging mastermind in the world. I know literally all the smartest people in the space. They all either do it or they're just not that smart frankly. Like, or they're distracted and busy and stuff, and they're like, but like anyone that hears what we're talking about with an open and logical mind just like sees the logic in it. And I mean, I can tell you too. So there's a rate of aging. So every year that passes chronologically, this might be a big like mindgasm for people. Doesn't mean that you necessarily aged a year. You could have aged more or less than that. So for a year that passed by, maybe you aged, 0.8. So you 80%. So at 80, at 100 years old, you feel and look about like 80. Great. It's really good. I had a really good number. I didn't know how good until I heard just recently that a friend of mine, Ben Greenfield, is super well known, is one of the most well known biohackers in the space. He spends a lot more time putting out really like just doing a lot of podcasts. So he's been doing it a while. So it's probably someone you know. He's at 0.71. I was shocked. I was like, oh, that's really good, but I was actually better than that. And then I heard Brian Johnson, who's made a lot of waves in biohacking, and Brian was like 0.67, I believe. It was more than mine, which is the lower number, the better. I was at 0.62, which means at 100, I feel and look like 62. Pretty good. Pretty
Amen. Good. I'm 62, so I love that.
Yeah.
I look like this when I'm 100.
There you go. Exactly.
Or better.
Right. So you want to halt aging. And I know Brian said that based on that number, he was aging more slowly than the average 10-year-old. So
that's amazing.
So it means that so am I. And what am I mainly doing? Well, I've mainly done what we're talking about today for about 10 years. So every 3 months, I get a hair test, and then I use supplements that really absorb well, which is what we're all about. We change the particle size. So the red blood cell is like, if you're watching this on video, is like that. Our particle size are like that. And the minerals you're trying to absorb are like outside of the screen. They're like 8 times bigger. And so therefore you have to break them down. You have to break those minerals down by your digestive system. Now that would be fine, but most people have a really poorly functioning digestive system because we, even when we do our best, there's still glyphosate, there's still Roundup sprayed on all sorts of stuff. There's still genetically modified foods that we don't even know we're eating because we go out to a nice restaurant and they're using some GMO foods, and we never hear about that, necessarily. Or maybe they got lied to by their producers. It happens. It happens no matter what, to some extent. So what do? The world is literally, this is a real number, 1,000 times more toxic than in any other time in history. So this idea of like not supplementing, it's not an option. Supplements help you by giving you more defense, not just offense, but defense against the things you need to defend against. So, free radical oxidation, all sorts of things. We don't need to get too super technical, but I think people just intuitively know that's true anyway. Yeah. So no need to like beat the dead horse. Yeah.
No, and it's good. And down below, everybody that's watching, and if you're watching the recording, we've got the website link for great resources. This was Barton Recommends. And what I love about what he's doing, he doesn't know it all, but he's got stuff he's vetted that if it's not going to fit you, he will recommend them coming from the test instead of building all these supplements, say you have to take mine or you're going to not succeed. And you just said that supplements are important. You didn't say you have to go to upgraded formulas. That's where you serve people in the community, is give them the best option, whether it's your option or somebody else's. Right. I think that's part of the problem with nutrition too. Everybody's throwing literally down our throat their stuff and going, I'm the guru, I'm the guy, I can help you. And you don't do that.
No, we own this phrase, this trademark: test, don't guess. Test, don't guess. Test, don't guess. So what that forces is acknowledgement for anyone that is a thinking person that hey, if you're not testing, you're guessing. You are guessing. Even if you're not using, even if you're like, for example, there are things that, going back to that alien example, um, I think, did we cover that in this show, the alien example? The
A little bit.
Yeah, so imagine an alien comes into Earth and goes, wow, so why, how are you people doing? Like, how long are you living? Are you healthy? And like, no, 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 like, this is America. But like, most of us are actually like pretty, like, severely overweight and like really low energy. I'm like, oh, wow. Do you have a list of everything that builds your planet? And I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. We have this thing. It's called a periodic table. And I'm like, okay. Do you test for all of them? And I'm like, oh, no, no, we don't do that. And you're like, but why? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Um, like, well, maybe there's some other test that exists. It's just not as well known. And it turns out there is, and it's a hair test. And it shows the ratios of the most important things. And it's based on healthy people versus, and I don't know if people know this, but blood tests are based on an unhealthy population that was, like, unhealthy and 60-ish plus, which there's some super healthy 60-year-olds out there. You're probably one of them. I mean, there's so much that we can do just by using the right testing method and by having supplements absorb well. And that's, the obvious thing to me is that I know people focus on gut health a lot, and we should. But
Yeah.
here's the thing: if you have low magnesium levels, you will be anxious. If you have low lithium levels, you'll be anxious and depressed and potentially suicidal. And we know that from groundwater studies in the U.S. and certain regions. And anyway, it's a long, long story. But for that same reason, I put out something called Upgraded Mood. But just to stay on this idea, if you're anxious and because you're low in one of these elements, and that's just like a couple of top that are really important that almost everyone's low in, and you're low in iodine, so you don't fight off viruses very well. It's something else we do. Iodine is antiviral, folks.
Yeah.
It's great to put. You can put it in your nose before a flight, breathe it in. You have it in your body all the time. It'll keep viruses from replicating, which is really important, especially around these times, and especially if you're traveling. So zinc, but zinc can displace too much. Push out, in other words, copper in your body. So looking at all of this, like, if you're testing the right way, you've got that dialed in, but you're anxious all the time because you have a deficiency, you'll most likely crave something that is bad for you, like sugary, and then you eat that sugary thing, and boom, the person winds up with candida. I hope not, but that is the case, and that is the path. So, by having minerals, you improve gut health just purely directly. And then also, because they act like a prebiotic, then also, you're preventing these deficiencies that cause the body to morph into these weird ways with things like candida and low stomach acid, which then, all but obfuscate the real ability for health and thriving.
And this is good stuff, and you're keeping it simple. I've got on the ticker your new book, announcing your upcoming book. Talk about the book and how they can get it, and what you're your mission with it.
Yeah, thank you so much. So kind of you. The book is around something I have a real passion for, which is how nutrition becomes personality. And it's something that we do more hair tests than anyone, and as a company. And, of course, I've seen patterns, unsurprisingly. And then there's just known patterns before I even started working in this that I just had to dig and do enough research in and found. So there are things like you can see where someone is very, you know, bipolar. Really, is what we would label it as a psychiatrist for or as. And the good news is that's reversible. I'll say that one more time. It is reversible. It's reversible.
Wow.
It's reversible, and it's reversible fairly quickly. Like you do a couple tests, like you're certainly out of the red quickly. Like I mean, like in a week, you're taking the right supplements like ours that absorb well. Yeah, I mean, look, if you can find other supplements that absorb well, good luck. But like we do everything for you guys, and it's really a love letter to the world because again, I'll say it again. If this process and these supplements were available with intelligent people that care and can go through the results with you on a Zoom call or phone call, especially at this kind of price point where you're meant to do it multiple times a year and you can actually afford to do it for like, you can literally do it 4 times a year for like $1,000 if you do it on subscription. Wow, right? That's
I'm going to jump in
democratizing
here.
health tests.
Yeah, $1,000, but let's look at healthcare costs.
Totally. That too. Yeah. If someone's is super unhealthy, the time off work, I mean, forget that even. Those are easy to quantify things. Think about the things that you can't quantify, like the fact that you're just not able to focus well and be present and enjoy life. You can be at dinner and with someone you love and not really be there just because your energy levels aren't.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Be present. Yeah, in your business. I mean, let's look at CEOs, founders, people that if you're
ROI.
not, you're in a fog, like you mentioned earlier in the show.
Yeah.
You're scaling your business or growing your business, and it's just not going to happen.
Right. I think in the future, we're actually going to evaluate our investment in companies based on knowing the health of, and it'll be optional, but like major investors will like refuse to, like, unless they have some health data like this, they'll just be less likely, maybe not refuse, but they'll be less likely to invest in companies where they're like, well, you want me to spend $100 million on funding your business. Let's see how you're doing healthy. I want to know, like, if it's a financial company, like what stocks are you investing in? How are you spending your own money? And then I want to see your health data too. And you don't have to, it's HIPAA, but if it's legal for you to optionally share that with me. If you choose to, then I'll invest, no pressure. But I want to know where you're coming from and what you're doing to take care of yourself, because this investment to reach the time horizon it needs to, it's going to take 5 or more years, which you as the jockey of this company need to be healthy. So, I mean, there's all sorts of really, I mean, that's like pretty far out thinking, but
no, but it's something that's going to come about because of healthcare. The other thing is mental health. It's a massive issue. We kind of talked about it. You were a guest on my podcast. We talked about it in our meeting. How's all this tie into the mental health aspect?
Really closely. Yeah, this is the book will give, or already gives, some examples when it comes out on this of things I've seen. For example, seeing a sodium to potassium ratio below a certain number, and then, which is something we don't look at in blood, period. So like blood is great for looking at certain things like hormones, but it's truly the last place to look for deficiencies. And like, that's just a fact. Like when you know enough, when you know everything that I know, you've seen all the options, and you see what a hair test is showing, you see a deficiency that would take maybe 10 years to present in blood. Because here's the thing, that that it blew my mind to understand. Your body has to actually run out of the stores. And this is how we reverse color in hair over time, is that minerals color hair. So we have these stores, and your body runs out of those stores. And then that's why you don't have the energy. That's why, it's just everything, every aspect of this is connected to, well, let's look at why that's happening and really understand it deeply. And then we realize soon, that we can reverse it, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
No,
the
that's
hope
amazing.
inspiring part of it, is like, on one hand, you got to do it, but on the second part, it's like, it can work.
Well, and it's you hear all the time, you take the wrong vitamins and minerals that you can't absorb, like your products do, you're just throwing money down the toilet, literally.
Yeah.
As you go to the bathroom, it's in and out, and you're spending $30-$40 for the cheap vitamins, minerals, and all that.
That's certainly true. And what it took me a while to realize is that it's actually worse than that in
Wow.
many cases. And the reason why it's worse is because when you don't know what you're taking, you can be taking calcium, for example. Like right now, I'll help a lot of people out and just go, hey, until you do a hair test, don't take calcium, don't take iron. Because most people are high in calcium. It's really easy to get. And calcium is balanced by magnesium, and balanced by potassium, and balanced by sodium in the body. So when we look at, and phosphorus as well. So when we look at a hair analysis, the individual levels of something are not nearly as important as the ratios. The ratios of these minerals, of certain ones, are very important. It's the 80-20 rule. And just, it's true in investing. It's true in the amount of fruit that grows on one single fruit tree in your orchard of 100 trees. Like 20% or less will actually grow 80% or more of the fruit. And they see this again and again and again and again.
Interesting.
80, if you have a company and you have 100 people, actually 20% or more are getting 80% or more of the work done.
We're done. Yeah.
And that's not fair, but for some reason, that's just how the universe is organized. So anyway, I mean, we have, it's almost like these fundamental understandings are just built into this, which is beautiful.
Yeah. What's the future of upgraded formulas look like? I know you talked about buying companies. That's a great future. What else do you see in the horizon here in the next 3 to 5 years or sooner?
Drilling more water wells, and expanding, helping a lot of people. We have the most effective product at improving sleep right now, from what I've seen, based on a double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial. We're able to improve people's sleep. So getting that product in a lot of people's hands is a big goal over the next 3 to 5 years. So if we can do that, Steve, I mean, I'll feel really good, because we also, in that study, saw people self-report that their anger went down 19% in 2 weeks. Their REM sleep went up as high as 160% over baseline.
Wow.
So if you're at an hour, you went, what, 160? Yeah, wow. I mean, way, way up. Deep sleep went up 2.5 times, 250%. At the high in the trial. And this is experienced in a placebo-controlled trial, which means people didn't even know what they were taking. They didn't know if they were taking it. Was it a placebo or was it helpful to sleep? And they were just, tracking their sleep with Oura rings. So they got a baseline. So the tool doesn't really matter as long as it's consistent and accurate, which Oura definitely is. So we got a baseline and did that whole thing, and we saw amazing result. I mean, nearly everyone, the vast majority of people in the trial, over 8 out of 10, improved every metric in their sleep. Every one, like time to fall asleep, time to fall back asleep if they woke up. Yeah, it's wild.
That's
just
powerful.
incredible. So that, and then we have something that we're doing a clinical trial on right now, and that's upgraded T, because men and women, so I'll say that again, women and men and women both have low testosterone over 25 if you're almost anyone. And that affects your ability to be decisive, to think well, to modulate cortisol, so to not be stressed, to build muscle, which is the key to living a long, healthy life. You have to have muscle. If you're just like thin, that equals frail in old age. And guess what? The number one cause of death over 70 or 75 is? It's actually frailty.
Wow.
Yeah. So frailty. So
And it's interesting because frailty is easily fixed is not the right word, but you know what I'm saying. It's not like cancer. I've got cancer. That's a whole different story than frailty, right?
Well, check it out. So everyone, and we've seen all-cause mortality show that people's mineral levels in general go down as they age. And well, people also get gray as they age faster and faster. And you still have a lot of color in your hair for 62. It's really great. There's plenty of people that don't have any color in their hair, and that you'll rarely find someone has no color in their hair and a lot of energy. If they do, they're still running on their reserves. And when those reserves run out, they'll just be like flat out, completely tired. And then, then they're not thinking well. And then they're like doing things that are like death by poor focus, like driving accidents, all sorts of things.
Well,
poor decision
Barton,
making.
You look great for 99. So
yeah,
I know it's working.
Thank you. 97, actually.
97. 90, there we go. Okay, it's close.
97. Not quite there, but 37 soon. And the thing about frailty, how it's connected with literally everything we're talking about here. Frailty and minerals. Guess what? Where we're pulling those minerals from? Bone marrow.
Oh, wow.
Bone marrow and organs. And that is what we're using to make the blood perfect. And then the way most people do is they go in, they check the blood. And even if they're looking at like RBC levels of magnesium in the blood, it still doesn't mean it's getting to the tissues. So you want to test the tissues to see what the tissues are missing. Pretty simple. When you think about it, but like, if this is the first time you're hearing it, be easy on yourself. So, but also like take action. Like I don't know how many times you're going to hear this in your lifetime, to be honest. So, I haven't heard it much outside of, and I'm in this world. So, but frailty could be prevented, and it happens because guess what? The body's been pulling from the bones for years. And you don't notice it, but then you look at bone density scans. Like that's one way I know I'm doing really well is my bone density is very high, and it's high because I take magnesium every day, multiple times throughout the day, morning, noon, night, and I sleep super deeply, so I recover and heal, and that's a big part of how that aging number, that 0.62, is low. And it could be even lower probably by optimizing that even more. And I'm always thinking about not so much like let me live a super long time, but let me be really healthy. It just turns out that most of the time those things coincide, and certainly in the case of minerals and having healthy, strong bones. So
Well, we're running out of time here. We got a couple minutes left. The last question that just came up as you were talking about blood. So let's use me. I'm taking the analysis, hair analysis. I'm going to get on a call for 15 minutes with your consultant. The next time I do a blood test and I follow your protocol, my blood test is going to look better, right?
Probably.
Okay.
We don't look at blood. I mean, honestly, it doesn't really matter, but it almost certainly will. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
almost certainly will. What we care about is that your hair test, well, one, that you feel better, and you almost always
Yeah.
feel better. So, love the way you feel is one of our taglines. Um,
Love that.
and for example, I'll tell you a quick story. I talked to one of the last consults I did before I had the big team of nutritionists that we have now regularly, at least, was this woman that was a marathon runner, and she's like, "Hey, I know my levels didn't go up much from the last test, but my output went way up. I wasn't running at all, and now I have the energy. I have the energy to run 7 miles a day." She's like, "I haven't done that in
Wow.
years." She's like, and that was one test, and then taking the advice from that test. And she's like, and then I was talking to her on her second test when she told me that. And, I still remember that. And so you see why the test was then very important for her, because it meets us where we are now. And that's why no process that doesn't adapt to where you are now is worth anything. So
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I love the way you feel. I love that phrase. I put it down below so people can see it. Remind you, love the way you feel. If you don't love the way you feel, reach out to Bart. Real quick, Bart, how can people get a hold of you?
Oh, thanks. Our website is really the best place.
Okay.
You can find me on social too. Just search Barton Scott and you'll find me there. But the website, Upgraded Formulas with an S, FORMULAS, upgradedformulas.com. And happy to give people a code, or maybe you have a code. I'm not sure. But
let's give them a code.
Yeah, sure. So just as a CEO, just use Barton 10 and on your first purchase, and that'll get you guys started. So
Beautiful.
Thank you everyone for listening, and Steve, thank you for having me on. It's such a pleasure.
This is great. I really appreciate it, and I think there's more to come on shows.
Yeah.
This is really a show we could say where we can save lives. Literally can say that without denial. Thank you all for watching. You can shop too if you want on his site. I think that's why I said that. Don't forget my show next week with Mark Carter. He is a sizzle reel interviewer extraordinaire expert. So I'll see you all next week, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern.